What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here. I just went and watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I want to let you know what I think about it. If this is your first time watching one of my movie reviews, hi, how's it going? It's good to see you. Maybe stay a while. Also, as I do with all of my reviews, I'm going to go over a little bit of information about the movie, then tell you the things that I did like about it, followed by the things I did not like, and then I'll wrap it all up with some final thoughts and ultimately whether or not I think you should waste your time and money to go watch this movie in theaters. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. In Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, superhero partners Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne return to continue their adventures as Ant-Man and the Wasp. Together with Hope's parents, Janet Van Dyne, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, and Scott Lang's daughter, Cassie Lang, the family finds themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures, and embarking on an adventure that will push them beyond the limits of what they thought possible. Shout out to Rotten Tomatoes for that plot summary. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the third installment in the Ant-Man trilogy franchise universe, and it stars all the usual cast. A couple of new additions to this movie series are Jonathan Majors, who is playing Kang the Conqueror. You may have already seen him in Loki, as well as a few really cool cameos, including Bill Murray, who has a fun role in the movie. But aside from that, and without spoiling any of who is actually in the movie, it's pretty much the usual suspects. Now, a little bit of background about me. I have seen every Marvel movie and show, and I've been a Marvel Comics fan my entire life, pretty much. I remember when I was a little kid, I had the Marvel collector cards back in 92, 93. It was actually pretty dope. It had this whole binder full of all of these weird and unique Marvel characters and information about them. And of course, I read the comic books my entire life as well. So I am pretty heavily into Marvel and all of the comic book characters involved in that universe. Of course, I've also seen the first two Ant-Man movies. I did really enjoy the first one. The second one was okay with me, but I never really thought of Ant-Man as one of those characters, specifically when it comes to the movies, that was going to be a big picture character. A lot of his stories I felt were a lot smaller, no pun intended. And with this movie, Quantumania, they're really trying to take his character and use him to kick off what is going to be the next major arc for the entirety of the Marvel Universe. Or universes, I suppose. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I feel about that attempt when we get later on into the video. But for now, let's start off with some of the things I liked the most about this movie. I think the biggest and most obvious thing is going to be the cast. Whoever does the casting for the Marvel Universe did a phenomenal job with the Ant-Man world and the characters in it, for the most part. I think Jonathan Majors is, to say he's fantastic is an understatement. He steals every scene he's in and really takes his character to an entirely new level in this movie. It's actually pretty wild to think about it, but Jonathan Majors has only been acting in movies for about 5 years now. And check this, before he was acting in movies and TV shows, he was going to Yale where he got his master's degree. So this dude is educated and highly trained when it comes to acting. So it's no wonder that he is, the big guy now who's in all the major movies. Also, of course, Paul Rudd is fantastic. Again, he's always good. I love seeing Paul Rudd. He brings a lightheartedness and a relatability to his characters that a lot of people I feel like really enjoy. And it really works specifically in this role. In addition to that, though, I think Michael Douglas was really cool in this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer had a lot to do in the movie, and I thought she was really, really good. Also, can we talk about how Michelle Pfeiffer is, I think, almost like 65, and she looks gorgeous still. I don't know what she's doing to maintain that, if she's eating the blood of innocent children or something, but it's ridiculous. I was stunned to see that she was almost 65 years old. In addition to a lot of the actors and actresses in the movie being really good, I think the way that some of them were written was also really enjoyable. Specifically with Paul Rudd, he is kind of the lighthearted focus of a lot of these movies. A lot of the comedy, a lot of the humor, a lot of the joy that can be found in these movies comes from his character or revolves around his character, and they do some really clever things with him. There's a whole opening sequence that I won't spoil for you, but I really enjoyed it. I got a really good kick out of it. And I do feel like they didn't overdo it with his character. A lot of times when you put comedic or funny characters in a dramatic situation, you can either, one, strip all the joy out of it, or two, you can make too many jokes, kind of like what they did with Thor: Love and Thunder, where something serious is happening, but you don't really believe it because they're just cracking jokes the entire time. And I feel like specifically with his character, they did a good job of balancing that with both him and I think with Jonathan Majors' character Kang. And I'll let you know right now, Kang's character is not funny at all. There's no humor with his character, as there shouldn't be. And with Scott Lang, with Paul Rudd's character, there is some humor throughout the movie, but not in the moments where you wouldn't be making jokes. So they do a good job about balancing that. It was also really cool to see more of the quantum realm. You know, we've only seen really bits and pieces of it in other movies to date, but we really get to flesh out what's going on there and what kind of creatures and what kind of sentient beings might exist and what kind of world they may live in. So it was cool to see that for sure. I also thought there were a few fun action sequences that were well shot or well animated, but honestly, kind of aside from that, those are really the major good points that stood out to me. Now, I do want to say, I don't think this movie is bad. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews online. I think Rotten Tomatoes, it has less than a 50% with the critics, although I think the fan score was somewhere around 80%. And for me, I don't think I could say this is a bad movie. And of course, that's how Rotten Tomatoes works. You either have the movie considered good and then you get a positive score, or you say it's bad and then of course that lowers the percentage score overall. So I don't think it's a bad movie by any means, but there are a number of issues that I had with it. For one, when it came to the positive things, I talked about a lot of the casting, a lot of the characters and the acting. There was one character in this movie who was part of the focus of the film that I just could not connect with. And that was Cassie Lang, Scott Lang's daughter, played by Kathryn Newton, I believe. And I don't know if it was how her character was written or if it was the actress herself and the choices that she made. But every time the movie stepped aside and was focusing on what was going on with her, I just wasn't interested. I could not get into it. Also, there were several other characters that were more minor characters, so I won't fault it so much for this. But I felt like they were kind of just copy paste of what we may have already seen before. And again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, so I don't want to give you specifics, but there are definitely a few characters in this movie that are straight out of Thor Ragnarok, for example. And it feels as if they just took a couple of these characters and, you know, changed their appearance and maybe some of their abilities or their, you know, genetic makeup. But at the end of the day, they're essentially the same as what we've seen already. Then there was another character who was largely CG. A lot of the characters that you're going to see in this movie are going to be largely CG. But there was one, though, that looked so bad. I was shocked when I saw them on screen. It looked like something out of 2001 Spy Kids. Or it looked like something that would have been made with an iPhone app with a face replace functionality. Like, it was just bad. It looked really bad, and I have no idea how that made it into the movie. And of course, I know there's a lot going on right now with the CG companies and the people that are working on a lot of the CG elements in these movies and how they are being overworked and underpaid. So I'm not blaming them, of course, at all. It is the fault of Marvel, of Disney, for allowing something like this to be put in one of their major movies without properly giving it the time it needs to be rendered or the resources needed to make it look like it is deserving of being in a major movie like this. And aside from that, some of my other big issues are really with the storytelling overall. There's a major sin that I consider when it comes to movies, and that is when the movie breaks its own logic. And there are a few things that happen, a couple in particular that I can think of in this movie where, well, I can say it like this without spoiling anything. There is a power level discrepancy where someone is powerful enough for something, and then later on in the movie, they seemingly become much weaker or less capable when there's no reason for them to be other than to serve the story and to make the movie move along. But they have this character appear a certain way and to appear to be capable of a certain thing or of a certain number of things, and then down the road, all of a sudden, they are much more insignificant for no reason. So that really threw me off. Also, there are some possibilities in the movie, some options that you might have as one of the characters that they just ignore for no reason. Or another thing, a third thing actually that I just thought of right now is there's a moment where two people are fighting, but also there's a ton of other people right near them. And they never come to interfere or to assist or anything like that. And there's no reason for that to have occurred. They're right outside. Why don't they come in and help? So it was just very strange. It was almost as if they slapped the movie together and they had a goal that they were trying to get to, and they just thought we wouldn't notice that they changed certain things or ignored other things. So that to me is a major sin. When a movie breaks its own logic or the rules that it set up for itself. Also, a couple other pet peeves here. And this one, it's not really a spoiler, but I guess it could be. So if you're super, super sensitive about spoilers, maybe skip the next minute or two. But why does every Marvel movie have to ramp up to a bunch of bad guys fighting a bunch of good guys? We've seen it in the original Avengers. We've seen it in the second Avengers and the third Avengers. And we've seen it in so many different movies where it's just a swarm of bad guys fighting a swarm of good guys, or even a swarm of bad guys fighting just a handful of good guys. But either way, they feel that in order to raise the stakes of the movie and to make it feel more dangerous, they just have to add more characters. And that, to me, feels lazy, and it feels like something we've already seen a million times. I would really love to see it if they made these movies smaller. Again, no pun intended. If they focused on Ant-Man and whatever task he has going on a smaller scale. And then at the end of the movie, you can tie it into what's happening in the grander universe. But not every movie has to be world breaking, because if you do that over and over again, then the stakes get to a point to where it doesn't matter to you. When everything is a big deal, nothing is a big deal. Also, the last thing I'll mention as far as like my pet peeves with this movie, the movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Why? The movie is about Ant-Man. Evangeline Lilly's character, the Wasp, I mean, she's in it, but she is not the focus of the movie at all. So I guess unless Cassie Lang is also the Wasp, then I guess that would make sense because she is a focus of the movie. Or even Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Hope Van Dyne, I guess she was the Wasp at some point. So maybe that's what they meant by calling it Ant-Man and the Wasp, because Evangeline Lilly is probably the least involved character of the main cast in this movie. So I don't know why they would include her character in the title. Very strange. But that's more of just a pet peeve. I don't know why they did that. Maybe you know. If you do, let me know in the comments. So all in all, I was definitely let down by Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I still enjoyed it. It was fun enough. There were some cool characters that I enjoyed seeing, some pretty decent fight scenes, and it certainly opens up to more possibilities in the future. So I'll be curious to see where Marvel goes from here. I am, again, let down because I was hoping that this movie would really kick off this multiverse saga that we've been kind of dawdling in for the past few years. But of course, that's just my thoughts. That's what I thought after seeing the movie. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Again, I wouldn't say it was a bad movie. It just let me down. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you want to support me and the channel, the best way to do that, in fact, the only way to do that right now, is to click on my Amazon affiliate link in the description box below. Basically, real simple. It doesn't cost you anything, but if you plan on buying anything on Amazon today, if you go through that link, it gives me a little kickback. Otherwise, if you want to see more movie reviews, ranking videos, trailer reactions, all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.